the first two off the bat, those will never change, and it's Jurassic Park and it's Dawn of the Dead, the 1978 version. The third movie always changes, because the way I kind of describe your favorite movie, because we get asked that a lot, and then we ask other filmmakers that, and it's always the same question. Like that's such a hard question to answer, and it honestly is. But the way I kind of see it, it's the movie that you watch annually. You
Mhm.
watch it every year, and you watch it more than once every year. So for sure, Jurassic Park and Dawn of the Dead, I watch those every year. I actually just watched Dawn of the Dead 2 weeks ago, and I'm gonna go to the Alamo Draft House to see it. I think like
Nice.
in 3 weeks. So those two for sure. And I'm a horror guy, so The Thing, John Carpenter's, always watch that one every year, and The Shining.
Mhm.
Those four movies I watch constantly every year. And I think the beauty about it is that as much as I've seen them, you still gain a little bit of knowledge with every viewing that you see. And that's just, I think to me, that's what makes those four movies a masterpiece.
What up, y'all? Welcome back to another conversation here on the JDG podcast Community Gaming. And we are back in our mini studio, and we are accompanied by my homie Frank Acosta.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate you coming over, man. And I know we talked about this a while ago. I remember when you were on YouTube, you were doing some stuff, and I was like, "Hey, man, we should talk sometime."
Oh man, dude, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was a while back.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's kind of cool that we planted to see like, oh, we'll eventually get to it. And, now.
We just watered it.
Yeah,
and
now it makes sense too, man. But thank you for coming over, brother.
No, thank you for the invite, man.
Yeah,
Appreciate
man.
it.
Why are you here?
Why am I here, dude?
Why are
What
you
do you
here?
want to know about me, dude?
Yeah, man.
I'm not that interesting.
You know what I mean? Like, what you do for a living and on and off is what I've been interested in, because when I started messing with all this stuff, you were already actually in the field.
Yeah.
So, like, give us an example of some of the things
Yeah.
you've done, because you worked in film, right? But from behind the camera.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I've been doing this for about 16 years, I think. Writing, I've been doing that since elementary school, and then middle school and high school, and then me and Alex, I don't know if you remember Alex Tovar.
Okay.
Yeah, me and him started writing a script in high school, and from that is where I kind of got the bug to like, hey, maybe we can turn this into an actual career thing. But yeah, I've been doing it for about 16, 17 years plus, and yeah, dude, I just love it. So from that time till now, dude, we all evolved from what we're doing from where we started. So I've done everything from like sound design, editing, writing. I've directed some shorts. I've gripped. I've done some production design. I've done some makeup, locations. I've assisted directed before. I've been a UPM. So a little bit of everything, man.
That
kind of,
jack of all trades kind of
if
thing.
you will, yeah.
Yeah. I remember, if I'm not mistaken, in high school, I remember you were already kind of doing that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, man. Because I remember Alcy.
Yeah, Alcy.
Damn.
He's hanging around with Sal.
Sal.
Yeah.
Sal, tall Sal. Yeah, man. I
go.
remember you guys would always do, we're always messing with the cameras and shit like that.
Yeah, and
man.
actually in high school, we actually filmed a short for Alcy and Sal, me and Alex.
Yeah.
So all four of us, we've done a short back in high school, man.
That's so sick. I remember I wasn't one of them. I forget, it was like a fight scene or something at the stadium or something.
Oh,
Dude.
over at UTEP?
No. It was in high. It was when we were in high school. Yeah, I forgot what it was, but I remember Alcy was like, "Oh man," I was like, "Man, I would love to do it." But it's so cool that you had that interest.
Yeah,
and that sparked that to you to kind of inspire you to keep going, man.
It just kind of happened.
So, what was like the first job like behind the camera that like first of all, how did you like, hey, I want to do this, and how did you start, and where did you go? Like, what was like your first job, like officially, like, oh shit, I'm actually on a set?
Yeah, well, like I said, it started with writing. I would write a lot during elementary, middle, high school. And during high school, like you just mentioned, we started doing some jobs there. The love, all that started with my dad, actually. When he sat me down, I think I was like maybe 6, and he showed me Night of the Living Dead, the remake.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, and that movie scared the hell out of me, but I also fell in love with it, because the one thing he told me, like after it finished, I remember turning to him and being like, hey, should we prepare? Like, should we cover up some of these windows and stuff?" And he's like, "No, this is a movie. Like, that's what they do. You know, there's a writer. He wrote the words to this. There's a director who directed this." That's when I was like, "Oh, damn, okay." And that's kind of where it started. You know, like you said, the seed was planted there, and it moved on. And you know, we did local after high school and everything, college and all that good stuff. We would still be filming, so it never really felt like I got in. It was
Okay.
just more just kind of like
You were.
yeah, we just did it.
Yeah. Okay.
But the first time that I truly felt like I was on set is, yeah, I think maybe like 8, 9 years ago, and it was a local set. I had written a script for a project that another production company had, which I eventually joined Board Film Studios. They had done a project, so I wrote a script for them, and they brought me on set. They had told me, "Hey, do you want to help out? It's your script." And I was like, "Yeah, for sure." They had hired another director to direct my script and everything, but I remember I jumped onto that set with two other buddies of mine, and yeah, we were gripping and everything, and it was the first time. It was way more professional than what we've ever done.
Yeah.
They actually had lights.
You're like, oh damn, this is
Yeah,
legit.
exactly.
This
Yeah,
is dope.
they actually
Yeah.
had sound. They had a boomstick and everything, whereas we had a microphone taped to like a broomstick.
Yeah.
Old gorilla style and everything. So that was the first time I actually felt like, oh shit, like this is cool. Like we're making it. And then just recently, within the last 3 years, I've been working a lot more union sets over in Las Cruces. And those sets, it's like, oh man, it's just every set that I kind of get on is just bigger than the last.
Yeah.
So on those sets, it's definitely kind of like, okay, we're in the door now.
Yeah.
So we just got to keep this momentum going.
Yeah. What I like how you said the grip, because I've always I remember when I'd watch a movie and I told the end grip 1, grip 2. What the hell's a grip?
Yeah.
Like,
So-
explain to me,
Yeah.
like, okay, for the common Joe Blow like myself and anybody who's watching or listening, like, explain like each kind of position you've done and what it and how
Yeah,
it
yeah.
like it helps as part of the whole. I mean, a lot of people don't understand that when the actor shows up, a million people are doing everything else before
Oh,
that
yeah.
person shows up and does their lines.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
100%. I mean, technically, you're a grip if you want to look at it that way. And no, you should look at it that way because you set up your own lights here.
So a grip is like somebody who sets shit up?
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So you would have the key grip, and the key grip is the one who kind of figures out what lights to use, where to put the lights, and then he conveys that to the grips. And the grips like, hey, give me a 650 right over here with a OTB, which is a blue gel, and it's the grips jobs to figure out because we've been on certain sets too where it's like a 4x4 room with no way to like anchor lights or anything.
Mhm.
So it's the grips job to figure out how are we going to mount this light up there. you know?
Okay.
So what's really cool about any position in film, and this actually goes back to something I was talking to somebody about earlier, where filmmaking, you think it's all about writing and the directing and the acting, which it is. But the number one thing that I believe filmmaking is problem solving.
Mhm.
And that could, that transcends to any other job, but more specifically in film, because like I said, just the example I just gave you, where you have 4 white walls with no edges, no nothing, and you need to figure out how to mount a light. That's a problem that you need to be able to solve as a grip. Same thing with the director. If something doesn't go right your way, you have to figure out how to, overcome that problem to get the shot that you need. But yeah, so going back to the jobs, sound. I've done sound before, and sound is exactly what it is.
Yeah, like microphones, like
yeah.
a board.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
you gotta have, you gotta hold the boomstick, and you gotta make sure you point it at the actor's mouth. Wherever they move, you move. So I've done that. Gripping, which is explain what that was. Production design. Whenever you see a movie and you see, like take the set here for instance. You have some file cabinets on there. This was a movie set. You want that to be part of the movie itself. You have the TV here. That's all the production design.
Mhm.
So you hire your production design people, and those are the people that you give the budget to, and you tell them like, this is what I'm looking for this scene specifically. They go out,
Set it up.
they buy the stuff. and they
That's so
set it up.
crazy. I love hearing that shit because there's so many goddamn moving pieces.
Dude. It's a
So
huge
many-
machine.
Yeah. That's the thing that I've always been interested because, we were kind of chopping it up a little bit. Like I always was always interested in music.
Yeah.
I love music, man. All types of music. But I love behind the scenes.
Yeah.
When they're talking about the beat and
Oh,
how they're
yeah,
making the
man.
sound and the board and the recording and tweaking. I was always fascinated like that because nobody thinks about that shit.
Yeah. No.
You know,
they don't, man.
Everybody guy shows up, sings like, yeah, that shit was dope. Fucking 20 people
100.
Did-
Yes, dude. Like,
did all that shit for you to show up.
yeah, and then by the time you show up, like you said earlier, you already have 100 people working, like, on those jobs we do over there before the actor gets there on set. If their call time is at 10, we're there since 4 in the morning.
Damn.
setting up, whatever job we're assigned. We're setting up, the lights. We're getting the locations ready. By 4 in the morning. By the time they show up, we've already put in 5-6 hours in. They come in, they do the lines, and it's our time to kind of relax a little bit
Yeah.
until the next setup and whatnot. But yeah, dude, it's really fascinating to see what goes into any type of production, whether it be film or even music. Because like you said, people just listen to a song and they're like, "That's a dope song," but they don't see the journey that it took to get there. Same thing with movies. You go see a movie and you're like, "That was a dope movie," but you don't think like one scene alone can last 2 weeks to shoot it,
Right.
and people just don't think about that.
Right. It was like, oh shit, this was dope. But you don't give credit to all the fucking people at the end of the movie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
At the end of the movie, there's like 1,000 people.
Which is something that I kind of really like that MCU does, is that they do the post credit scenes afterwards, because it makes you sit and see all the credits.
Yeah.
And you get to see all the people that did everything.
Yeah.
And it's when you actually sit down and look at the credits, you're gonna be amazed. Like, dude, that movie had like 1,000 people. So you understand how much money a movie is to make.
Yeah.
And then that trickles down to independent directors where you're like, well, I have this budget, it's a whole moving machine with just a bunch of cogs and wheels that have to turn in tandem for it to work.
Damn. So like you were talking about all the different things that you've done, and what were some of the challenge, like what for example, what was one of the biggest challenges that you can remember, like, damn, we had to figure this shit out and we got it done, and everybody was like, yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because everybody has at least a story or two,
for sure,
or anything.
man.
Like, oh my, I was telling you a story earlier. I was like, we're at this job. And all this stuff,
that's right.
And I did the rally talk.
The inspirational
everybody
speech.
was all, yeah, we figured it out. You know what I mean? Because I'm sure that happens all the time.
Oh, dude. No, it happens on every set that I've ever been on, whether it be local or one of these bigger sets. It doesn't matter how much money you have. You're always going to come across problems, which is why I say that filmmaking is all about problem solving. And dude, there's challenges in every single set. So to name one specifically, it's more just kind of like the small dubs. Those are the ones that you kind of like, oh, cool. A perfect example is the one I keep mentioning, where it's like, we need to rig a light up here, but how are we going to do it? On this last set that we were on, we needed to have a wall spreader, which is just a huge tubing. I think like maybe 8 feet. The walls themselves were separated, like I think they were 12 feet. So it's like, well, we need 2 feet extra to like, how are we going to do this? So we're like, I don't know, but they gave us an hour to figure this out. So let's try and figure it out. So I think the guys ended up, getting some pieces of wood. And it was a very shoddy piece of work because they just taped it up. They tore T-shirts so that the wall spreaders wouldn't, mess up the walls. So it's a lot of MacGyver.
Hell yeah.
So it's those moments where you finally see it and you're like, gosh. There's this cool Instagram page called Shitty Rigs. And pretty much it's the same thing. So like back in the day when we used to do a panning shot, which is essentially from like, if you're going to go from this angle to your bottom corner, your camera just pans down to it, you track it. Back then we used to do it with wheelchairs, and if you look it up, a lot of independent directors do that. They get the camera person on the wheelchair and then they just drive them out there,
Hell
and
yeah.
as smooth as you can do it, and it's those small little dubs where you're all like, dude, we didn't have a dolly track, but we did it with a wheelchair.
Hell yeah.
That's dope,
Yeah.
So it's a lot of those small little dubs that even being on film, you don't really think about until you finish it. And you're like, it's almost like your masterpiece. Like, that's dope,
Yeah.
But
I was like, I could like, I like how you said the MacGyver thing.
Yeah.
Because like, I recently I was just out of town and I was like, oh fuck, I forgot a cable. Oh, I'm gonna fucking do this.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, cool. I'll just do this, and and then you just figure it out.
That's it. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think a lot of the time for any job and anything is just the being able to just be a problem solver.
That's
Be a problem solver.
Job, yeah.
You know what I mean? Just being a problem solver, just to have the mental capacity to be like, all right, here's an issue. Let's try to figure this out.
Yeah.
You know what I
you
mean?
got to do it in a way where you have a cool, calm, collected head, because if you're taking the lead and you start kind of freaking out, your people are going to see that, and it's like, you've lost control of the ship.
Right.
So the story you were telling me earlier, that's a perfect example of like leading your ship and knowing how to problem solve.
Yeah, we're gonna wreck. We're gonna wreck. Yeah. Let's try not to and shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's try not. I want to go back to You touched on you wrote something.
Yeah.
And what can you explain, like what the script that you wrote or what the story was, or kind of go into that, and because I'm sure that was like, oh shit, they're filming this shit. I wrote this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Talk about that, man.
Yeah. So writing, for anybody who's a writer out there, I think the number one thing about any writer is that they're going to hate their own work. When you finish writing it, you're going to read it over and you're just gonna think to yourself like, this is a piece of shit, like this is terrible. But it's just those barriers that you just got to keep pushing through and everything. So the very first thing that I wrote, like I said, it was for not even a contest. It was for a project that they were doing where they would get a random writer, a random director, and then they would just get random crew members and put them together. The whole point of it was just try and grab as many creative people from the past and just bring them together. So I ended up writing a script, and it was like a 5-page script, and it was about a bank heist. I remember that. So I remember I took a lot of inspiration from Reservoir Dogs.
Hell yeah.
Well, I don't know if we have this type of budget to actually show, a bank heist or anything. So I kind of wrote it to where it's the beginning of the bank heist and they're planning it out.
Oh, nice.
So it's kind of not even a dark comedy. It's more of a comedy in general. So I ended up writing that.
What was it called?
An American Heist.
Okay.
An American Heist. I'm terrible with titles.
Right.
When it comes from my own
Is that
shit.
out there anywhere?
It's on YouTube. Oh, is it? Yeah. If you got to dig deep, but I believe it's on our YouTube Board Films channel.
Oh man, I'm gonna try to put the link. I'm gonna try to put the link.
We'll
figure it out
for sure. That one is deep in there somewhere.
Yeah.
So I remember I wrote it. I gave it to the guys. They invited us on set, and if I'm being honest, when I saw the dude who was directing it, I was like, oh man, that's not how I pictured this line being said, or like that's not how I pictured this. And they improvise a lot of the line. And as like a writer, like this is my baby. Like,
yeah, you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, you're butchering it. Like,
Yeah.
What's going on?
I wrote this for a reason.
Yeah,
like this
exactly.
way, yeah.
Like I have an exact vision, but since you're the director, like you're just fucking it up, man. So the first project that I ever wrote for Board Film Studios was that one, and I was kind of like, oh man, like I didn't like how it came out. But then we kept helping him out, and they eventually asked us to join their team, which we did. And since then, I've been able to write and direct my own stuff. So now it's kind of like, all right, I have a better grasp as to what I want them to say, how to say it, and everything. But yeah, that was my first experience into like writing into an independent production company.
Where do you you were talking about you've been writing ever since you were young. Like what and your dad kind of brought you in about like what brought the creativity like in you like to like what were some of the things you would write about when you were young and you were like, oh, this is cool. Let me, you know what I mean? Like, kind of talk about that because I always feel like, I have kids. So I always, when I was a little kid, I remember being creative in my own different ways.
Yeah.
But I never saw it as an adult seeing a kid. Right. So now with my kids, I see them being creative. And I'm like, oh shit, I always try to push them to be creative.
100%.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So, like, talk about some of the things you would write and what inspired you and gave you that little to like, oh, I love doing this.
Yeah. So before writing, I used to read. I'm a huge book nerd, so I love reading. And I always just loved, as cliche and stupid as it sounds, escaping into different worlds, horror books. Stephen King's like my main, go-to. So I loved all that horror stuff, writing into it. So when I was in 6th grade, I remember I used to buy these little, small little pamphlets, but they used to be filled with horror short stories. Back then, I didn't really know what plagiarism was. So I would read it and I'd be like, this is such a cool story. I want to write something like this. So I would freehand copy the entire story, but then add in my own little things here and there,
Okay.
And then little by little, I started realizing like, oh, well, all I'm doing is just stealing, which ironically enough, when you get older as a screenwriter, that's essentially what you do. Mm-hmm. That's what Tarantino does with a lot of these writer directors do. Like they see movies, they get influenced, they take this shot from this movie, they take this shot from this movie, and they amalgamate it into their own creation. But back then I was literally just ripping it off and stuff. So I would just freehand a lot of these stories that I would read and just, by word and then just add in my own stuff. Come middle school, I started coming up with more ideas, creativity honestly comes from anything and anywhere, dude. I get a lot of creative juices from music, from everyday news. Every night I look up on Yahoo and just look at world news and seeing like, oh, like what's going on over here, like there's a story there, That's my number one question with everything that I come across. Like, is there a story here? And for the most part, 10 to 1, there's always going to be a story there, I remember one time, and it was so ridiculous. I was driving through, heading towards downtown, and there was a singular gray cloud in the sky. And I was riding over there, and there's a joke on Family Guy about Stephen King where he's got no more ideas, so he makes a scary story about a lamp. And he's so good that the guy's like, all right, yeah, you can have $1 million. So as I was driving, looking at this cloud, I was thinking like, is there a story here? I was like, there's got to be a story, maybe it's aliens or something. And this was about, I don't know, like 10 years ago. Come down the line, I think 3 years ago, lo and behold, Jordan Peele comes out with a movie called Nope. The poster itself is a rain cloud. And that's when I was like, Yo, what? Like that's so crazy. Like there is, so there's stories around you everywhere. You just got to be open to just being inspired by anything.
Right.
So that's where a lot of the creativity comes from. So my main thing that I write just recently within the last 5 years actually has been more drama, which is, it's kind of weird how you find your footnote because horror is my number one genre, followed by comedy, and then followed by documentaries. So dramas ain't even in my top three, but for the last 6 years, I would say, yeah, the last 4 films that I've written and directed have been drama. And I've been pretty successful in those in terms of getting the emotion that I'm getting, that I want, getting the emotion, evoking the emotion to the audience, so cause I've shown it to a couple of people here and there. And yeah, they this scene, when I wrote it and when I directed it, I want this emotion to come out. And sure enough, the audience sees it that way. So I'm like, all right, I'm doing something right. So drama's been working for me just recently, but I do want to get back into horror and everything. But it takes me so long to write a script.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously with how much time it goes into filming and writing and all that, I love hearing that because the fact that you were saying that you draw inspiration from anything, I do that shit too, man.
Yeah.
Like I'll talk to anybody, and they'll just say something, and I'll think about something, and or like I'm like I'm at work and I'm doing, and I'll think of a skit or like a shot or something I can do, or like where I could put my camera when I'm doing jujitsu, or I'm gonna you know what, when I'm playing in this hockey tournament, I'm gonna have my GoPro on, but I'm gonna have my wireless mic, and I'm gonna have a second camera out there. I'm gonna have it recorded, so this way I can get 2 different angles. And everybody's like, how the fuck do you think of that? I'm just like, I just think of shit.
It just comes to you,
and then I just write it down. I might not use it right away.
Yeah,
but I always kind of think of things like randomly, and I'll just write them down.
Yeah,
write them down, down, because I feel like I like the fact that you say you get inspired and it comes from anywhere. You're like the littlest thing.
Yeah, the
littlest thing. And I also like the fact that you don't keep yourself to like a certain niche.
Yeah,
like you're open to work.
100%.
You know what I mean? Because that was like one of my questions. I was gonna ask you, like, what was one of your favorites to do? And you said, oh, I like to do this and this, but lately I've been doing this.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And it's crazy how you land up in that stuff, And yeah, I've always heard, Hollywood directors getting pigeonholed in horror, which is, again, my favorite genre. So like George Romero, John Carpenter, Wes Craven, those guys are known as the masters of horror. But if you look at some of their filmographies, you're going to see that 1 or 2 movies in there that are not horror. They're actually drama or something like that, So I've always thought to myself, like, well, if, when I make it, like, I don't want to just be known as a horror guy, But then we started getting directors like who? One of my biggest influences is Spielberg.
Yeah.
And you talk to any film person and love him or hate him, you got to respect for what, you got to respect for what he did to
all
the industry.
different things that he's fucking put out.
Exactly.
Like, sometimes you forget. I was like, that fucker did E.T.
Exactly, yeah.
And Jurassic Park.
And I
was like, what the fuck?
That's the beauty of it. Yeah, you look at it, and the man's done horror, he's done drama, he's done comedy, he's done action, he's done war. And it's kind of like, yeah, that's what I want to do, So it's, again, you don't necessarily set yourself out to like, I'm going to be a horror director, I'm going to be a comedy director. But it's within those times that you're getting inspired, with these things where you're like, that's a cool story, and I feel like it oozes drama, So you write it as a drama, but then with your love of comedy or horror, you can add aspects to it. Like a perfect example is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I don't know if you've seen that on the Tarantino one.
Yeah, the latest one. With
the latest one. Yeah,
dude, that shit was dope.
Amazing.
I thought it was kind of slow. I didn't understand.
Yeah, and that was one of the
biggest
things from those people.
I was like, oh shit, yeah. But then, that shit was amazing.
I feel like that movie has one of the best horror sequences in any movie within the last 10 years. I think, which is when Brad Pitt's character Cliff Booth ends up at Spawn Ranch. That whole sequence, it's just oozes with suspense and horror, and especially if you know the background, like, oh, this is like Charles Manson's playground, and the way he directed that, it's like, dude, this motherfucker can do horror. It's just he just likes doing ultra violence things like this.
Yeah,
but if you wanted to do horror, dude, he can definitely
sprinkle
do it.
A little bit.
Exactly,
you know what I mean? He'll sprinkle some comedy and some shit like that.
And that's all it is, man. I think that's a pretty cool way of not getting pigeonholed.
Yeah.
Whereas if you look back in the 90s and 80s, the directors I just mentioned, most of their movies are straight horror.
Yeah.
But now we have all these up and coming directors, and even directors from the 90s, Tarantino being one of them, who inspired a new array of directors who are now, again, amalgamating horror, comedy, westerns, and everything. So we're getting an influx of just original movies but it is superseded by all the sequels and remakes
Yeah.
and superhero movies we got. But if you look out for those movies, they're there, man.
Yeah.
So that's what's kind of cool about that.
Yeah, I've always I've never really liked horror movies. Like
Yeah.
I won't go to a movie to go watch a horror movie.
Yeah.
Like if I'll watch it at home or whatever, but I've just never that's just me.
Is this not your thing?
Yeah, just
or
not my
you're
thing.
just scared of them,
It's
or
not
what
that I'm
is it?
scared. It's just it's never I look forward to a horror movie.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just I like more of a sci-fi. I'm a sucker for all the comic book movies and shit like that.
Gotta love them,
Action movies and shit like that, comedies or whatever. But yeah, one of the last horror movies, I can't even remember the last horror movie I watched, to be honest with you. I think I watched the remake of where she gets buried and she's in plastic. Night of the Living Dead, is that it? It was the girl that gets possessed out in the cabin.
Oh, Evil Dead?
Evil Dead.
Oh,
Evil
okay,
Dead.
Okay.
I watched that shit.
The damn in the cat. That's
the remake one. Yeah, the remake.
They already made another.
Yeah.
Another. Evil
Yeah,
Dead movie.
I had watched that, and that was years ago,
Yeah,
and I was like, "Oh yeah, this is not my shit." You know what I mean? I watch it, but I'm like, this is fucking crazy. You know what I mean? But that's just me.
Yeah. No,
You know what I
to
mean?
each their own. Man.
Yeah. So I was gonna ask you, what is? Well, you already said your favorite director was Spielberg.
Spielberg for sure.
Mm-hmm. What about a newer one that people might not know about to kind of keep a lookout?
A newer one? Well, I mean, I could say the more modern directors like Nolan. I love anything Nolan does. But more, I guess, underground. I guess one of them would be Jeremy Saulnier, and I think he's only done 3 movies within the past decade.
Mm-hmm.
But he has done. I've only seen 2 of his movies out of the 3 or 4 that he's done. But the 2 that I've seen are just balls to the wall crazy, because he manages to mix in a little bit of the whole movie. I think for the most part are suspense, but he manages to add in a little comedy here.
Yeah.
And then he adds in a little horror, So that's a director that I've been in love with for a while. And then another recent one, God, what is his name? Jeremy Saulnier, and I don't remember his name, but he directed Brawl in Cell 99 with Vince Vaughn.
Mm-hmm.
That is an incredible movie. It's so good, and it's in my opinion, it's one of Vince Vaughn's best performances. Man, he's so good. He really goes outside of his more traditional comedy route,
yeah,
or even his drama route. To
Yeah.
a certain degree. This one, he's the type of character that you don't want to fuck around with.
Yeah.
And it's such a good movie. His name escapes me, the director. But then he did that one, and then
you're gonna be driving home and remember that shit.
And I'm gonna text
right when you walk out. It's that fucker's name.
I'm gonna text you let's record the whole podcast again. But then he did this other movie called Bone Tomahawk with
I think then they cut that motherfucker in half.
He stood upside down. Yes, that one.
I didn't see the movie, but I saw the scene.
Yeah,
I was like, what the? I was like, thank you.
Yeah, both of those.
Yeah, no, thank you.
I could see why. Yeah. Especially when you told me about the horror.
I was like, oh shit.
They're so visceral, dude. And the beautiful part is that for a horror fan,
the beautiful
he doesn't
part.
cut away. Yeah. As
part.
demented as I could see him,
Yeah.
I love that stuff,
Yeah.
So the fact that he doesn't cut away from it, you got nowhere else to look. If you're glued to the screen, of course you can.
Yeah.
But for the most part, he doesn't allow you to see look anywhere else. And what's awesome about that movie is that it's an excellent Western, with a stacked cast, because you got Kurt Russell, dude. Oh, amazing actor. But then once it reaches the end of the second act, going to the third act, it starts becoming more of a horror film.
Mm-hmm.
So those 2 directors. Damn,
Right. I can't remember who's gonna bother me.
But yeah, those 2 directors for sure. And then there's an actor that works with the first director I named, Jeremy Saulnier. They're best friends. He just recently got into directing, and his first movie is going to be the remake for the Toxic Avenger.
Oh, dude, I saw that, the preview.
Yeah.
I love the little cheesiness of it.
It's so good.
Dude, I remember that shit, bro. I remember watching that.
Have you seen it recently?
I have not.
Dude, if you go back and see it, it's like, how did they ever get away with any
like
of this
ripping
stuff?
some guy's arm off and shit like that?
That does happen, but that's the tamest thing in those movies, dude. I watched it not too long ago, and I totally forgot that. They end up. I don't know what we can and can't say, but they end up not aliving children in that movie.
No shit.
And they do it in a way where, again, they don't cut away, so you're just kind of like, what the?
Is that the one from the 80s? Was that 80s? 80s or 70s?
No, that was 80s.
80s?
89.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn,
It's a wild movie,
I remember
dude.
watching that on TV. I'm sure they cut a lot of the other shit off, but I remember watching that shit on
Probably,
TV.
dude.
You know what I mean? I was like, oh, Toxic Avenger. And then recently I saw there was a trailer. It was kind of like a teaser, and I was like, oh shit, fuck
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
that's what's amazing. One of the actors from those first two, the director, that's his first directional debut. So I'm excited for
That-
that.
that's sick. So you talk about the creativity, not getting stuck in the genres, all the different things that inspire you. What what is like if you can give me like your top three films that you enjoy,
Oh man.
your top three films, and it doesn't have to be like best, second, or just like
Yeah.
three films
Just
that
in
you're like,
general.
damn, these are legit
My
ones that,
my desert island movies, if you will.
yeah.
So the first two off the bat, those will never change, and it's Jurassic Park and it's Dawn of the Dead, the 1978 version. The third movie always changes, because the way I kind of describe your favorite movie, because we get asked that a lot, and then we ask other filmmakers that, and it's always the same question. Like that's such a hard question to answer, and it honestly is. But the way I kind of see it, it's the movie that you watch annually. You
Hmm.
watch it every year, and you watch it more than once every year. So for sure, Jurassic Park and Dawn of the Dead, I watch those every year. I actually just watched Dawn of the Dead 2 weeks ago, and I'm gonna go to the Alamo Draft House to see it. I think like
Nice.
in 3 weeks. So those two for sure. And I'm a horror guy, so The Thing, John Carpenter's, always watch that one every year, and The Shining.
Hmm.
Those four movies I watch constantly every year. And I think the beauty about it is that as much as I've seen them, you still gain a little bit of knowledge with every viewing that you see. And that's just, I think to me that's what makes those four movies a masterpiece.
Nice.
Yeah.
I,
So
I I like the fact that you all the movies are like 20 years old. You know what I mean?
yeah,
The fact that's how I can tell that you like that kind of, like, you
yeah,
like film and you're inspired and you see that kind of thing. Because for me, it's like when anybody thinks of a movie, they think of something like more recent.
yeah,
You know what I
100%.
mean?
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Like
No, of course not.
like for me, like for movies, I just think about the movies that like at the time, like, oh, that was funny and it
Yeah,
sticks with me. Because a lot of the movies that I like to watch are like the movies that inspire me, or movies that I just like do the one liners.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Which again, like
are so stupid, but to
like you
me,
said, they're not nothing wrong with that.
yeah, to me, it's just like amazing and shit
Yeah.
like that. So what are what are some upcoming movies that you look forward to seeing? I know that you said there's a lot of remakes, and I want to ask you another
Yeah.
question of that. Like, what is a movie that's coming out that or has come out recently that you were like, hell yeah, that was good. Like within the last
Yeah.
like 2-3 years maybe.
Um,
That you're like, oh man, that was a good movie. Like that was cool. Like more recent, up to date, all the
shit,
crazy
more
shit.
recent, up to date. I mean, again, going back to any Nolan movie, dude.
Yeah.
Anything that guy does, it's not only slapped with originality, but they're calling him the modern the modern father of blockbusters,
Hmm.
which makes sense because there's a picture of this year's Oscars where Steven Spielberg handed off the Oscar to Nolan, and it's like the grandfather of blockbusters handing off the Oscar to the father of modern blockbusters.
Hmm. Passing the torch and shit.
Yeah, exactly. And
Mhm.
it's so eloquently put because yeah, Nolan has this thing about making these epic spectacle movies that you would only see maybe coming from, somebody like Steven Spielberg, but he still does it in a way where it's shot on film and where he does practicalities a lot, like the rotating hallway scene in Inception.
Mhm.
That was an actual rotating hallway scene that they built. For Oppenheimer, they didn't really explode an A bomb, but they really had a huge explosion. So anything that he does, I'm always gonna love. But then, any upcoming movies? There's one movie coming out this Friday, actually, the 22nd, called Late Night with the Devil, and the way it's being, talked about, and the way it's shot like a 1970s type of a movie. And yeah, I love
all
that.
eerie and fucking
Yeah.
grainy looking.
Oh, it's so good, dude. I love that. And that one stars this actor David Dalmatian. I forget. I can't pronounce his name. I butchered it. But he's been in The Dark Knight. I don't remember the scene where they're burying Gordon, and then Joker ends up shooting, and then he gets in the way. And
Yeah.
yeah. The guy that they end up kidnapping, and he's kind of a crazy guy.
Uh-huh.
That actor. He's also in Polka Dot Man in the
Okay.
Suicide Squad
Okay.
remake. He is a huge horror guy. So he's been in the just recently he was in The Last Voyage of the Dimitri, which that was a pretty good Dracula movie. But he finally got his turn to be a leading man in a horror movie, and all the reviews are saying like this is one of the best horror movies of the year already.
Nice.
And the premise of the movie is also that's what's kind of cool about it. It's the originality of it, where it's like, yeah, dude, that movie. For me, that movie looks amazing. There's another one coming out. I I Bury the Dead, I think is what it's called, which is a very unique take on the zombie genre. Because I think within the last couple of years we've just been oversaturated with just zombie fiction.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah, which again, I'm
Yeah.
like to each their
Yeah,
own.
yeah, yeah.
I'm a huge zombie guy because Dawn of the Dead is my favorite movie. But even to myself, it's kind of like, all right, can we like what's going on? Let's move on. But this movie kind of turned the genre on its head, and it's like it looks more like a drama than it does in a horror movie. So it's like, all right, that's dope. I like that. So those two movies I'm highly anticipating. And then for the summer, dude, I've honestly been so busy that I haven't really been able to see
Right.
what's coming up next. But I know for sure those two are on my radar.
Yeah.
You know?
I like how you say that because a lot of times, like, I mean, I play video games and everybody's like, hey, you looking forward to any games? I'm like, sometimes I don't even fucking know.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, I'm so in my, like, I play what's out at the time. Or,
Yeah, exactly.
Or a lot of people like, you're not playing that game. I'm like, it didn't hit for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, I thought you would like that. I was like, I guess I don't. You know what I mean? Because like how you said that, because everybody has like their own taste or whatever and whatnot. Another question I had for you is, give me a remake of a movie that you're like, Jesus, this was terrible.
Oh man,
because you said earlier, there's so many remakes.
So
it
many
seems
remakes,
like that's like the thing recently, which is cool, and I understand to a certain extent. But what was and it doesn't have to be like recently, like any remake
Just
that you're
any
like,
remake.
oh my god, that was bad.
I mean, I haven't seen this one, but I can already tell you it's a horrible piece of shit. The remake to House Party.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, the remake to House Party looks terrible compared to the original one. It's like, no, give me the original one all every day. Going back to that, the remake to The Wicker Man with Nicolas Cage. That's another terrible piece of shit movie. And that's not to say that there aren't any good remakes, because even sometimes remakes surpass their original counterparts. Invasion of the Body Snatchers would be one. The Thing would be another one. Night of the Living Dead would be another one. But for the most part, I think for the most part, the reason they make remakes is because there's already an established audience to it. There's an established IP to it. So it's kind of like, well, what better way to make some more money than just slapping it, with a new moniker and just saying it's for the modern audience,
Right.
Which misses the entire point of, trying to make a remake. But those two for sure, terrible pieces of shit. What other horror movies? What other remakes are there in general?
I recently, sticking on the topic of remakes, Dune.
Dune.
I grew up, shout out to my brother Randy. I grew up playing Dune, the video game, on Sega.
Oh, no way.
I played it on Sega, right? I played it on Sega. Then shout out to my friend Adrian. He had a PC and we played Dune 2000.
Oh,
you know what I mean? On his PC. Then it came out for PlayStation, and we would link our two PlayStations and we'd play against each other.
Yeah.
So I was like, I already kind of knew the story, kind of like the houses. And then when I was a little older, I watched the 70s movie. I think
the David Lynch one?
Yeah, and it had Sting and shit like
David
that.
Lynch, yeah.
And I watched it. It was cool because I had played the video games, and then I watched the movie, and I was like, oh, this is badass. And then, they made the remake, 3 years ago?
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, I'm fucking looking forward to this.
Yeah.
And they fucking hammered it. And then the second one that came out fucking blew my mind because the lore of the story and everything, I'm a sucker like that. You just said, there's an audience out there, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
But man, they fucking hit that shit, man. And the lead guy, he fucking did such a good job. And the story was so good. I was so happy because not all the remakes are good. They're like how you said, they're just like, oh, let's just fucking put it out and make it modern and hopefully everybody likes it. You know what I mean? And just like, but I like the different perspective and the things that you look at films and movies way differently than a Joe Blow, right?
Yeah.
So I always like hearing people like, oh, this movie's a piece of shit because of this, because of that, because you're looking at it differently than I am. So I always respect that shit. I always like that. So let's talk about like what are some of the upcoming projects and things that you're working on right now, like that you can talk about or whatever that.
For sure. No, so right now we have one film in the can already, actually, that we just filmed back in February, and this one was mine. I wrote it and directed it.
Nice.
It was for a contest that one of the head from Board Films, George Barona, he came up to me and he told me that there's this contest happening in Cruces. You want to do it? And I was like, yeah, we'll give it a shot. I'll do it. So we filmed it back in February. we're probably going to release that this year for sure. I just don't know what the timeline is of it. But that's the latest thing that I've done. 2 years ago, I wrote and directed something of a passion project, um, which was actually heavily inspired back in high school. The idea I've had it since high school, and just recently I just kind of started getting into it. So 2 years ago, I decided to write a, I think it's a 20-page script that ended up being, as of right now, it's a 30-minute movie. We still got like one more scene to film, but that one's gonna be released this year. And again, that one's a drama. It's drama mixed in, not necessarily with horror, but it's called the Horror Trail. And the quick synopsis of that is, it's two best friends, and one of them is leaving behind, something for his best friend, for his brother, and for his stepfather. He's leaving something behind for all of them, and at the end of the movie, you find out what ends up happening. And the short movie is part of a bigger movie that I have in mind, and the bigger movie is a road trip movie, so it's a comedy, but it's something that I always wanted to do personally, that I've seen a lot of YouTubers do, and I think that's when I took the approach of like, all right, there's an audience for this, so I think it can be done. And the whole idea is that these two best friends take a road trip to visit every horror movie location that they like throughout the country. But the little twist is that his best friend is actually deceased, and he's left behind a lot of cassette tapes, going old school on this one, that he himself recorded to keep his friend accompanied on this trip.
No shit.
But because they have such a huge bond as best friends, it gets to a point in the movie where he doesn't even need the cassettes. Like, he's just imagining his friend there and going back and
that's
forth.
so
with
cool.
It. So the prequel, if you will, of that feature film that I want to do, that one should be releasing this year as well. And then I have another idea that I want to do in the summer that we've been kind of working on, and it's actually a fan film. So for that one, we won't be able to monetize or any of that good stuff, but it's just an idea that I just want to do, and it's going back to zombies. Hoping, knock on wood, but it's going to be a Resident Evil 2 fan film.
Oh,
no!
I just recently played that.
The remake, yeah, I know you did, right?
Yeah, because like everybody was giving me shit, like, you're playing this for the first time. I'm like, it wasn't on my radar at that time. Like, it wasn't on my radar.
I mean, it is now, though.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I've been since I've been streaming and shit like that, I've been more open to different genre of games.
Yeah. Oh,
you know what I mean? So when I played, I played 8, Resident Evil 8, and then I played 6, and then I played 2, and then I played 4, and I was like, dude, this is so dope. They're like, oh, you gotta play this, and then I played The Last of Us. So I've never played games like that. I've always been a shooter guy.
But now you're expanding your horizons.
Expanding and being more open, because I'm like, dude, I really do enjoy the storyline and things like that.
Straight up.
I get so sucked into like, oh, why are you playing on easy? I was like, I don't care about being on hard. I'm more about the storyline. Everybody gives me a hard time. It's like, why are you getting hit like 20 times and not dying? It's on easy. Why do you have it on easy, Jimmy? I want to play the game. I'm invested in the story. I don't want to fight this guy fucking 20 times to fucking get to the next line. What am I doing wrong? What do I need to do? Give me the code. All right, cool. Like, I don't care.
The game genie.
You know what I mean? I'm more about the storyline. You know what I mean? So I like that. I like the fact that you have so many different projects, so many different things. I love hearing that. When it comes to this thing with what I've been doing with content, it's just like you're always constantly writing things down and working on things and getting to them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like everybody does not understand that the time it takes to plan, to set it, and things like that, and then to actually, put it out and be like, all right, cool, man, this is what I thought about 5 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, you're giving me props on this, man. I thought about this setup and doing all this shit like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I just recently started, and I was like, damn, it took me that long. It's just like, why did it take me so long? I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't ready. I wasn't building. I didn't have enough tools, enough things to be set, to be in the position to where like I can have this at home, and it made sense. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because I'm as I gotten older, I've been more calculated how I make my moves in life. If I want to make a move to do something, I do it right.
Right.
What do I need to do? How do I do it? Okay, now let's do it. You know what I mean? I'm not the type of person to just throw shit on the wall and let me see what fucking works.
Sticks, yeah.
You know what I mean? And some people are like that.
Yeah, and it works for them.
Yeah. Not for me, man. I ain't fucking wasting my time.
You gotta find your own path.
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah, I like that you have all this shit coming out. So let's talk about without you getting in trouble or anything like that.
Okay.
What are some of like the funniest things that you've seen on set, or like some funny stories and shit like that, without having to say the location or
Yeah.
people or the what project it was? Like,
Yeah.
so give me like one of like, I fucking can't believe that this fucking happened right now.
So the one that comes to mind, we were working on this film, and I'll say the name. It's a Dolph Lundgren film.
Dolph Lundgren?
Yeah.
He was on set. You saw that motherfucker?
He was a director, so we'd see him every day.
He was a.
He was.
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
How tall is this motherfucker?
He's
a big dude.
He is a big dude. I mean, I'm 5'6", I think. I think this guy was like 6'1", maybe.
Yeah.
6'2",
Okay.
So he's a tall
I thought
guy.
he was bigger.
But
than
yeah,
that.
no, he's not as big as one maybe would perceive him. You know.
Yeah.
No, but he was a writer, director, and acted in this movie.
Oh shit, that's cool.
So he did triple threat. But for that one, we did it during the heyday of COVID. So the company was taking extra precautions. Like every morning, we'd have to get tested and everything. But we were shooting in the Rio Grande, and what ended up happening, there's another team in film called Teamsters, transportation. Those are the guys who make sure that if we're gonna move from one location to another location, it's those guys' jobs to move the entire set over there in terms of trucks. You got to move the grip truck, you got to move the camera truck, you got to move the makeup trailer, all that. They're in charge of moving it to the next location. What ended up happening, I think there was maybe 6 people on the team. 4 of them got COVID.
Oh,
So
fuck.
only 2 of them were available to move the whole set.
Oh,
So they
damn.
just kept going back and forth. So me and my manager ended up getting to the location at the Rio Grande. We were shooting in the actual Rio Grande over in Cruces. So we ended up getting there early, and we set up, the tents. We set up, catering and everything, all that good stuff. And then we started seeing people start showing up. The first person that showed up was one of the drivers for the transportation team. And the job of a location team is that you're essentially babysitters. You got to let people know where to park, where to go eat, where the bathrooms are, and we do that with signs and everything.
Director.
Exactly.
Directing
As
traffic.
clear as you can make them.
Yeah.
So
Hey, stupid over here.
yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is, man. So the way the Rio Grande was is that you had to drive up, and then you had to go down into the Rio Grande, and then you would go back up a small hill, and then that's where we didn't even have anything there. That was a problem. Is that this lady? I don't remember her name, but she ended up going the same route that I just explained to you. So we were all like, "Oh, she went the wrong way. Whatever. She'll figure it out." Well, she tried going down the hill. And when she went down the hill, the van started tilting up.
Oh, fuck.
So it looked to the point where it was gonna just roll down the hill. So we're in the truck facing her, and my manager, my buddy, he's looking on his phone, and I'm just kind of checking out what she's doing, and I see the van start tilting, and I just yell out like, "Holy shit, dude!" My buddy looks up, and we see the van kind of like teetering and tottering. So we both get out and we run over there, and when we get there, she's flooring it. The wheel is above the ground, at least maybe a foot, and it's just spinning. So we're all like, "Don't do anything. Hold on." So she's all like, "What do I do?" And I was like, "We don't know." Like, but all right, let's again problem solve. So at that point, the medic ends up walking by and he sees the situation. So he's all like, being the medic, you would think safety first and everything. So we did something that you probably shouldn't do, but it was the only thing that we could have thought of. So what we ended up doing was, we jumped on the back of the van and we started jumping on it to bring it down as she was flooring it reverse. And as we're doing this, I'm telling my buddy, he's like, "Hey, you know what? If we fucking
She's gonna fucking run us over."
So the only thing we did was we just kind of grabbed onto each other. That's all we can do, man. And it was just so surreal being kind of like, dude, like, how the hell does this happen?
Right.
And at this point, we already started getting crew members showing up and everything. And as many signs as you put up, you're always going to have one person like, "Where do I park?"
Yeah.
So we're dealing with this situation as people are like, "Where am I parking?" And it's like, oh my God, dude. So the other Teamster arrived, and he was like, "Get out of the, take it, commit."
Yeah.
And she was, I can't do it. So she got out of the van. This guy walked in. Like, "Everyone get out of the van, move out."
I
So
got this shit.
Yeah, dude. And so it's like a baller move. He just puts it in drive and just clears it. And we're like, dude, that's all we needed to do. So that's one thing that just came to mind where it's like, that's unbelievable that happened, dude.
What's it called? Now that you freaking name dropped, what are some other people that like you can name drop that you've been around on set, or kind of like, or directors, or like just actors or actresses?
And the only reason I'm name dropping is because these movies are already out.
Yeah.
So the first project that we ever worked with increases the actors on that one was Tyrese Gibson,
Okay.
Theo Rossi. He's a actor from Son of Anarchy and stuff.
Oh
And
yeah, Theo. Yeah, with the tattoo on his head.
yeah, him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was on there. We had on that one Graham Greene. I don't know if you've seen Dancing with Wolves. He's a older Native American actor.
Okay.
He was on that one too. And I think that was basically it for that one. Then the second one we did was Wanted Man. Dolph Lundgren was on that one. Kelsey Grammer was on that one.
Oh shit.
That one was cool because I actually got to serve him a beer.
Nice.
So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Those were the two main guys from that one. Then on the third one we worked with Mel Gibson on that one.
Mel Gibson.
Yeah, Mel Gibson was on.
How was that guy on set? Like
he
being
was
around him.
Quiet, super quiet, but he was one of the actors where it was kind of amazing to watch work.
Yeah.
Because with the other actors, it's kind of like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this. Like, okay, no, he'll do it. But you can see that they were just kind of doing it there for the paycheck. And that's not to say that maybe Mel Gibson wasn't there filming for the paycheck.
Yeah.
But I was outside.
You could see the little notch turn.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like he would be rehearsing his lines, blah, 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 and I'd be like, I want to see how he turns it on. And yeah, just like his light switch, he would turn it on. And it's like, damn, that's not Mel Gibson anymore. Like that's crazy, So he was really fun to watch work. And then on that one, Dominic Purcell, which is I think the older brother from Prison Break, he was on that one. Kate Bosworth was on that one too. And on that set, I got to meet Justin Long, which that one was cool. He was a really nice guy. Then on the last two films we did, there were more independent actors. We worked with somebody from The White Lotus. I haven't seen that show, so I don't know who it was. And then the latest Exorcist movie, one of the actors from that movie was in this other one that we did. So he was there too. And yeah, and literally on this last one that we did back in September, October, November, most of the actors for that one were kids.
Mm-hmm.
So that one, it was a second movie and everything like that. But those are some of the people that we worked with and whatnot. So,
that's cool, man.
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey
that's cool
so far, man.
I was talking about, I went to this content creator thing recently, and there was some guys that were there that I wanted to talk to. I didn't get a chance to talk to because, you see them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they're just regular people too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And one guy, I went up to him and I was like, hey, man, I've been following you for 4 years.
Big fan.
You know what I mean? I was like saying like little things and I just appreciate you. And he was like, all right, cool. Like I wasn't like all up on his dick or anything. But at the same time, I'm like, hey, man, it's cool to. And he took his time and talked to me. And not like he's a big ass streamer or anything, but the fact that I had been following him and the way he carries himself helped me inspire me to carry myself.
Oh,
you know what
I
mean?
love that.
So I love meeting people like that because like they're just regular people. I tell people all the fucking time. Like I've met artists. I mean I have I was talking about the music thing, and I grew up listening to ICP and Tech Nine and shit like that. So when I see them, it's dope. Like one time I was with a buddy and we saw ICP. We did the VIP and we did a meet and greet before, right?
Dude.
And we walked in and I was just shooting the shit with him like nothing, right?
No way.
And my buddy fucking just was quiet, starstruck like a motherfucker. It was crazy, Jacob. And and we took a picture and it was like maybe like a 2-minute like, hey, cool fucking bullshit. Like, hey, thanks for coming out, guys. Took a picture. We walked out and I was like, bro, what happened? He's like, I had a full conversation in my head with him. I had a full conversation in my head with him. Because it's cool when you meet your idols or people who inspire or people who are in the field that you're in and you're like, oh, damn. And, just talking to them or them taking the time to talk to you for a little bit or whatever, it inspires you and just like, having those conversations cool like that. So like before we start wrapping this up, man, I wanted to ask you like, what's an ideal like future like or job that you could see yourself doing? Hopefully, God, willing that everything works out.
Right.
What do you want to be doing when it comes to this field?
Well, I know that the cliched answer for every filmmaker, locally or even not locally, would answer was writer director, just because everybody wants to be writer director. But honestly, yeah, that's what I want to do. That's what I'm setting my sights at since high school. I was like, this is what I want to do. So my sights are set on that. But just recently, I think maybe around when COVID hit, so 3-4 years ago, I've been getting a lot more into writing. So one thing I would like to do is get paid for writing.
Mhm.
Whether it be via screenplays or novelizations, writing is right now where I'm at. Where like this is what I want to focus, maybe like 90% of my time, which is kind of cool because I think last year actually I got paid for my first screenplay that I wrote out. So if the trajectory keeps going the way it's going, I'm hoping writing pans out. But
Yeah. I like how like you're honest about that because that's how I feel like when it comes to this. I feel like I'm just building, my skills
yeah,
and being able to just keep going from there
yeah,
because everybody just sees that and like, oh, I want to do that. Well, how the fuck do you get up
yeah,
there?
exactly.
You know
Yeah,
what I
they don't
mean?
see the you got to climb that huge
Yeah.
Mount Everest.
Yeah, and like with my final question is like for anybody who might be listening or watching, like they might get in this field, like what are some of the tips and some of the things you would say to somebody who's inspiring to
Mm,
work behind the camera or be on set or
uh,
inspired to be? What are some of the things you would tell this person to do or not do?
honestly, I would say be hungry. Be hungry for it, for any aspect, especially if you want to be in the creative arts, whether it be filmmaking, music, or whatever it is. Be hungry for it. Study as much as you can. And I don't mean the traditional way of school. It works out for some people. I actually graduated from film school too, as well. But I honestly feel that didn't help me at all, where it does other people. But what I mean by that is, especially if you want to be, a musician or if you want to be a filmmaker, watch as many movies as you can, listen to as much music as you can, see behind the scenes, see how this gets done, see how they recorded that beat, and just be hungry for it. Start, learning all on your own, because especially nowadays, anyone can learn anything off the internet.
Hell yeah.
You don't necessarily need to spend 60,000 on a film degree that you're
Hmm.
just gonna put up on the wall. That honestly means nothing. Like I've gotten some of these jobs, they don't care where you come from. If you can do the job, you're hired.
Hmm.
So just be hungry for it. And the second thing would be don't quit. We were talking about this earlier. It's all about the structure of the mind just to keep going you know. Uh, and as cliche as these, little sayings are that you find on posters, like the only person that quits is yourself and all that. All those have a lot of weight to them because it's honestly true. Like right now, for instance, you're the only one doing this podcast. Like you don't have outside people helping you out. You're the one who did all this. Keep going,
Yeah.
and before you know it, next year you're gonna maybe be in a bigger studio or
Yeah.
something. So as long as you're hungry for it and you just don't quit,
Yeah.
that's what's helped me so far, and it's what's helped out a lot of local filmmakers that I've seen.
Yeah.
And as of right now, I'm at a good place where I want to be, and from here we can only go up.
Hell yeah, man.
You know?
I love hearing that too because it's funny because I used to, not until like maybe like 5 years ago, I
Yeah.
used to make fun of people that would like talk about manifestation and quotes and
Yeah.
shit like that to make fun of people like I fucking, but it's fucking true.
No, it is.
It's fucking true,
They're
man.
cliches for a
I
reason.
just like, I hear things and they like resonate in my brain
Yeah.
and they're just like, no fucking shit. And it's like the simplest thing,
Yeah.
like, and it's cool because every time I talk to somebody who's doing anything in their whatever field,
Yeah.
they all say the same goddamn thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you keep doing what you're supposed to be doing, and I tell people this when it comes to content, hey, damn, Jimmy, you're doing this. I was like, I ain't done shit.
Yeah.
I haven't done shit. I
Yeah.
don't feel like I've done anything. You know what I mean?
It feels that way.
But at the same time, I feel like I'm going in the right direction.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And like hearing people go through those struggles and doing this and being a key grip and fucking, being on the
Right.
jump of a van,
Yeah.
those are all the things that build you as your character and
Mhm.
what you learn from, to move forward. Because I always like, I had one homie, man, shout out to One Shot Knox. He was like, man, where I am right now is where I thought I was gonna be 2 years ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I knew where I wanted to be. He's like, but I knew what I had to do that
Yeah. To
to
get
keep
there.
to keep going.
Right.
A lot of people just expect it shit just to fucking happen or fall into place.
Yeah. No.
You know what I mean? A lot of people are like, damn, you're doing all this. I'm like, I'm not like, oh, you're a YouTube partner. You do all this. I'm like, I'm not really getting paid anything.
Mhm.
I really not. But I love doing it and I
Right.
enjoy doing it. And that's what drives me to keep doing
Yeah.
it. So when I hear people talk about anything in their respective field and I hear the same fucking thing from people that are
Yeah.
successful in their own, I'm like, oh shit, I'm actually doing all
Yeah.
right. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's just like I'm on my way. As far as like if I keep gathering tools and
Mhm.
tweaking and making everything better, that helps me not only put out better content, but be more confident and being able to do more things. Because a lot of people always say that they're working, but they're not really. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Like, oh, I'm putting in work. I mean, all
And
right,
you
fine.
see him.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've seen some of those people.
Yeah,
too,
man. But I appreciate you coming in here and talking about what you do, man. And I look forward to seeing what else you got going on and keeping up with you more often now, and those projects that are coming out.
Yeah.
Looking forward to seeing those, man. But thank you so much for your time, man. I appreciate you, brother, man. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you, man.
Thank you so much. You guys make sure I'm gonna find the link for his first shitty movie. He said somehow I'll find it or I'll post it. I'll make a reel and shit like that. But
I'll look for it too.
Yeah. But and then you'll remember that guy's name on the way home.
Yeah, dude. I know I will. The minute you shut the camera off.
Yeah.
Me, dude.
But make sure you guys watch all of our content, man. I'm on Spotify, I'm on iTunes, I'm on YouTube. We're pushing YouTube more than anything. Jimmy Duke's Gaming Podcast on Instagram, on Facebook, all that good shit, guys. I'm just not a streamer. I'm not just a podcast guy. I'm doing vlogs. I'm doing everything. I'm fortunate to meet and know people that are, doing things and inspire me, and just having these conversations and giving me a different perspective, man, really inspires me in different ways. It really does. And going back to what you were saying, like, I don't want to be stuck just doing one thing. That's why I started talking to more people that do different things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I love all the gaming homies, all my content creators, but when I speak to somebody outside of something I don't know about, I get more like interested.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because then I'm like, oh shit, Frank talked about that. You know what I mean?
And you don't know where you're gonna get inspiration.
Exactly, man. That fucking cloud.
They made a fucking movie out of it, man.
Shit, man. All right, guys. Until next time, peace out, man.
Deuces.
Thank you guys so much for your time and support. Peace out, homies.